I was Mom's favorite, the one she spoiled rotten. On her deathbed, she lay propped up against the hospital pillows, surrounded by my older sister, my brother, and a room full of relatives. With trembling hands, she pressed a bank card into mine. "Quinn, you're the one I worry about most. There's $1 million in this account. Everything your father and I saved over a lifetime. I'm leaving it all to you." I stared at that card, my face drained of color. I couldn't bring myself to take it. It felt less like a gift and more like a death sentence. The next second, in front of everyone, I slapped her hand away. "Drop the act," I said, my voice cold with disgust. "You think I want anything from you? You hand me an empty card and expect me to fall for it? Save the performance." The card hit the floor. Mom scrambled, dragging her frail body to the edge of the bed, reaching down to pick it up. She dusted it off, blowing on it like it was something precious, then looked up at me with frightened eyes. "Quinn, what's wrong with you? Is it not enough? Honey, this is everything I have. Please don't be angry with me." My brother Liam was the first to snap. He crossed the room in 2 steps and slapped me across the face.
"Quinn,
"Have you lost your mind? That's our mother. She has given you everything since the day you were born. Treated you like you were made of glass. Grace and I together don't add up to half the love she's shown you. And this is how you repay her." From across the room, my sister Grace stood with her arms crossed, watching with a cold smile. "Quinn, don't play the victim when you're the one who won. Everyone in this family knows Mom's world revolves around you. Every time she came to visit me, she'd leave with something: my son's school supplies, my husband's briefcase, my jewelry. And she'd bring it all straight to you, like some kind of offering." She rolled her eyes. "She wants to give you the money? Fine, take it. I'm not going to fight over it. Honestly, after all these years of watching her play favorites, I'm used to it." I stared at Grace's sneering face. She wasn't wrong. Every time Mom visited Grace's place, she'd find something: an expensive pen set, a designer bag, a gold necklace, and carry it back to me like a prize. Grace never talked back to our parents, so she just swallowed the resentment and aimed it at me, greeting me with barely concealed hostility every time we were in the same room. I kept my expression flat.
fine," I said.
"If you all think it's such a valuable gift, then you can have it. I don't want it." Grace looked up, surprised. Liam's throat moved. He watched me carefully. "Quinn, what exactly are you trying to say?" Before I could answer, Mom grabbed my sleeve. She tilted her head back, tears streaming down her face. "Quinn, do you not love me anymore? Please don't push me away. I don't have much time left. Don't do this to me." She was crying so hard, this frail old woman working herself into a state over me, and the whole room shifted. Nobody could watch it without feeling something. "Quinn." Aunt Patricia had reached her limit. "Today I'm going to say what needs to be said, for your mother's sake. When you were 3 years old, your mother went out to run errands and left Liam home to watch you. He ran off to play and you fell. You could have been seriously hurt. Not a scratch on you. But when your mother came home, she punished Liam so severely that people thought she'd gone too far. When you were 12, your sister got married. The groom's family gave a substantial dowry contribution, over $200,000. Your mother held on to every cent of it. Didn't let Grace take a single dollar back to her new home. Said she was saving it for your future wedding. Grace started her marriage with nothing but a few sets of bedsheets. I truly don't understand what got into my sister-in-law. She put that ungrateful child on a pedestal and neglected 2 perfectly good kids in the process." The room went quiet after that. Liam exhaled slowly, his jaw tight. Grace's eyes glistened. Not quite tears, but close. Mom sat red-eyed and silent, crying without making a sound. I let out a short, humorless laugh and looked at her. "So, I'm supposed to thank you for all of that?" Those 7 words detonated something in the room. Liam lunged forward and knocked me to the ground. Aunt Patricia grabbed a broom from the corner and came at me with it, striking me across the back. "You ungrateful little, after everything she's done for you. Today I'm doing what your father would have done if he were still here." The broom came down again and again. My back burned. Grace watched from a few feet away, arms still folded, and turned to Mom with a bitter smile. "See that? That's what you raised, Mom. I genuinely don't understand you. How can you be so blind? Am I not your daughter? Is Liam not your son? Why does every good thing in this family go to her, and we're invisible?" Mom shoved herself upright and pushed Grace aside, her face set. "Back off. Your sister is being attacked and you're standing there making comments." She pushed past everyone and threw herself over me, arms outstretched. "Stop. Stop it. My baby." Aunt Patricia froze mid-swing and let the broom drop to the floor. "What are you doing? I was trying to help you. If she were my daughter, I would have done a lot worse." Mom held me against her chest, crying, rubbing my back. Are you hurt, sweetheart? Let me see. I sucked in a sharp breath and shoved her away. She went down hard. Get off me. You miserable old woman. What's taking you so long to die? Don't act like you care about me. You. Liam went ballistic trying to get to me, but Mom grabbed his leg and held on.
Son.
She was sobbing. Don't hurt her. She's my heart. She's my heart. I pulled myself to my feet, scanning the room. What is this? I said. What are all of you doing? I turned to Mom. Your performance is impressive. I mean it. Academy Award level. Then I looked at my brother. And you, Liam. Between the two of us, who's really playing the victim here? You've all been at this long enough. Don't start believing your own act. I looked straight at him. Of everyone who's ever come at me, you're the last person who gets to. Liam went still. Then his face darkened. What does that mean? Mom just gave you her entire life savings and you treat her like this. Am I wrong about you? You know exactly why I'm acting this way, I said. You just don't want to admit it. He hesitated. Something flickered in his expression.
Quinn.
What are you saying? I smiled, reached over, and took the bank card from Mom's hand. I pressed it into Liam's palm. You're the man of the family, right? Mom said she wanted me to have this. But I'm just her daughter. I shouldn't be the one making these decisions. So, why don't you handle it? Right here, in front of everyone. Split the money 3 ways between the siblings. Fair and square. Liam stood holding the card, his face cycling through shades of pale and red. Grace stirred. Her eyes locked onto the card with barely disguised hunger, though her voice came out slow and casual. He's right, Liam. If Quinn's offering, then let's divide it properly. We've got the whole family here as witnesses. Better to settle it now, so there's no confusion later. Mom sank back against the pillow, weeping softly. It's my fault. It's all my fault. I haven't left enough for my children. And now I'm watching you all turn against each other. Uncle Robert, who hadn't said a word this whole time, finally had enough. He drove his cane against the floor with a crack. Enough. All of you. Your mother is still alive.
She's right there in that bed.
And you're already negotiating her estate? Grace.
Quinn.
I've seen a lot in my years, but today takes it. The old saying holds true. When it matters, it's the son you can count on. Grace's jaw tightened, but she looked down and said nothing. I smiled. Uncle Robert, that's an interesting take. Mom just handed me this card in front of everyone and named me specifically. And now I'm the one voluntarily offering to hand it to Liam and split it fairly between the 3 of us, and somehow that makes me the ungrateful daughter, while Liam's the reliable son? Uncle Robert sputtered, clutching his chest. Quinn, stop this. Aunt Patricia rushed to steady him, then turned on me. Everyone can see what you're doing. You came in here to start a fight. Yes, I said. I did. I turned to Mom. But the reason I did, you know better than anyone. Why don't you explain it to them? Mom looked up. Her eyes were red. My darling, I know I haven't done enough. I know I can't give you more than this. But I put that money in your hands because I was worried about you. You're not married yet. Your sister has a husband, a family. She'll be okay. Your brother has a wife. They just had their 2nd child. You're on your own. I was afraid that after I was gone, you'd have no one in your corner, that you'd get pushed around, that you wouldn't get your fair share. She dabbed at her eyes. I did it because I love you. A murmur moved through the room. Heads shook. Tongues clicked. She pours everything into that girl, and this is what she gets back. Honestly, it would have been better if. I tuned it out. I watched my mother cry her practiced tears, listened to the chorus of condemnation around me, and felt nothing. Okay, I said.
Mum, I'm sorry.
I was out of line. The way I spoke to you is wrong, and I apologize. Mom blinked. She looked at me like she didn't recognize me, like she couldn't figure out why I'd suddenly softened. Aunt Patricia sniffed. First sensible thing she said all day. I turned to Uncle Robert. But, Uncle, it isn't fair. Mom handing everything to me leaves Liam and Grace with nothing. When Dad passed, he said his estate should be divided equally among the 3 of us. I have no right to take it all. That's why I wanted to settle this clearly, in front of the family, so that after Mom is gone, there's no room for conflict. Uncle Robert went quiet. Aunt Patricia murmured. She's not wrong, actually. He cleared his throat. Well then, perhaps it would be best to.
No.
Mom sat straight up. The word came out sharp and final. The whole room turned. She caught herself, smiled awkwardly. Quinn, you. Mom. I cut her off. I love you and I love Liam and Grace. So, why won't you let me share this with them? The color drained from her face. She opened and closed her mouth several times. Because, Quinn, wait until after I'm gone, and then you can divide it however you want. If you do it now, I won't be able to rest. It was a weak excuse. Even Uncle Robert and Aunt Patricia, who'd been firmly in Mom's corner all afternoon, looked uncertain. I let out a short laugh, stepped forward, and grabbed the phone off Mom's nightstand. She lunged for it. I caught her wrist and forced it unlocked. Quinn, the room erupted. What are you doing? Aren't you curious? I said. Why does Mom need to wait until she's dead before I divide this money? I held the screen out toward them. That's why. Everyone leaned in, and the moment they saw it, the room went silent and then exploded. My sister Grace was the first to react. Her hand flew to her mouth, her sharp, manicured nails digging into her lower lip. She took a step back, her eyes darting between the bright screen of the phone and my face, her expression transitioning from cold satisfaction to absolute, frozen disbelief. What? Grace's voice was barely a whisper, a dry rasp that caught in her throat. What is that? Beside her, Liam's face went through a rapid series of transformations. First, a flicker of confusion, then a sudden, violent realization that drained every drop of color from his skin, leaving him a sickly, chalky gray. He lunged forward, his arm outstretched to snatch the phone from my hand. Give me that, he snarled, his voice cracking with a sudden, desperate panic. You're manipulating things. You're trying to confuse everyone. I didn't flinch. I simply stepped back, letting his hand swipe through empty air, and handed the phone directly to Uncle Robert. Uncle Robert, I said, my voice steady, devoid of the emotion that was currently tearing the rest of the room apart. You're the patriarch of this family. You're the one who believes in tradition, in the reliability of the son, in the sanctity of a mother's love. Read it out loud. Tell everyone what my mother's $1,000,000 legacy actually is. Uncle Robert's heavy brows furrowed. He took the phone with a trembling, liver-spotted hand, adjusting his thick reading glasses. The room fell into a silence, so profound that the only sound was the rhythmic, synthetic beep of the heart monitor attached to the frail woman in the bed. For a long 10 seconds, Uncle Robert's eyes scanned the screen. Then, his jaw slackened. He looked up, his gaze fixing not on me, but on Liam, and then on my mother, who had suddenly stopped her weeping. She sat perfectly still, her eyes locked on the floor, her shoulders rigid. This, Uncle Robert's voice shook, losing all of its previous authority. This is a mobile banking app. The account ending in the card number Quinn was just handed. The balance is $43.12. A collective gasp rippled through the relatives standing near the door. Aunt Patricia stepped forward, her face twisted in confusion. $43? Robert, that can't be. Helen said there was $1 million. The lifetime savings. There's more, Uncle Robert interrupted, his voice dropping an octave as he scrolled down. Under the same login, there is an active personal line of credit. A loan. The outstanding balance is $312,450. The debtor listed on the loan. He paused, his chest rising and falling heavily. The debtor is Quinn Lynn. He looked at me, his eyes wide behind his thick lenses. Quinn, did you take out a loan for $300,000? I didn't, I said, looking directly at my brother. But my mother had my social security number, my birth certificate, and my signature on a co-signed apartment lease from 5 years ago. And she had a son whose logistics business was sinking like a stone. I pointed a finger at the screen. Scroll down to the transaction history, Uncle Robert. Look at where that $300,000 went the moment the loan was approved last September. And look at where the rest of Dad's life insurance went over the last 3 years. Uncle Robert didn't need to read it out loud. The silence that followed was answer enough. Liam, Grace whispered. She walked over to him, her movement slow, almost mechanical, like a sleepwalker. She grabbed his arm, her grip so tight her knuckles turned white. Liam, look at me. Is this true? Liam tried to pull his arm away, his eyes darting toward the door as if calculating his chances of escape. Grace, don't listen to her. The business was in trouble, okay? It was a temporary arrangement. Mom wanted to help me. She offered to help me. I was going to pay it back. With what? I asked, my voice cutting through his frantic excuses. You haven't made a single payment on that loan in 6 months. The bank has already initiated default proceedings. The notices were sent to Mom's address because she set up the account with her billing details, keeping me entirely in the dark. If I hadn't gone to the bank myself last week to resolve a minor credit card issue, I wouldn't have discovered that I am legally responsible for over $300,000 of debt that was systematically funneled into your personal and business accounts. I turned to my mother, who remained motionless on the bed. The image of the weeping, fragile matriarch had completely vanished, replaced by a cold, petrified silence. And that brings us to the $1 million, I continued, stepping closer to the bed. The brilliant final act.
Tell them, Mom.
Tell them why you handed me that card today, in front of the entire family, with such theater. She didn't look at me. She kept her eyes fixed on the white hospital blanket, her fingers twitching against the fabric. She did it because she knew she was dying, I said, answering for her. She knew that once she passed, the truth would eventually come out. The bank would come after me for the unpaid debt. My credit would be ruined, my life destroyed. But more importantly, she knew that Grace and Liam would eventually find out that Dad's savings, the house equity, and Grace's dowry were completely gone. If she died quietly, Liam would be exposed as the thief who drained the family dry. The family would despise him. Grace would sue him. But by staging this grand deathbed performance, by handing me a card and declaring, in front of every aunt, uncle, and cousin, that she was leaving her entire life savings of $1 million solely to me, she created the perfect scapegoat. The room was so quiet you could hear the distant rumble of traffic outside the hospital window. The truth was laying itself bare, piece by ugly piece. Once you died, Mom, the first thing Grace and Liam would do is demand their share, I said. And when I told them the card was empty, when I told them there was no $1 million, who would have believed me? No one. You made sure of that. Grace would have assumed I spent it, or hid it, or ran off with it. Liam would have played along, pretending to be outraged, secretly relieved that the blame had shifted entirely to me. For the rest of my life, I would have been hounded by my own siblings, labeled a greedy, deceitful monster who hoarded the family wealth while my brother and sister got nothing. I looked at Grace, whose eyes were now swimming with tears, not of grief, but of a sudden, sickening realization. And the best part of the plan? I whispered. I would be left holding a $300,000 debt that I couldn't pay, while Liam walked away with the actual cash, entirely free of suspicion, protected by the lie that I was the one who won everything. My God, Aunt Patricia breathed. She slowly lowered the broom she was still holding, her face flushed with a mixture of embarrassment and horror. She looked at the wooden handle in her hands as if it were a poisonous snake, then dropped it. It hit the linoleum floor with a dull clatter. Helen, did you really do this? I had to. The voice didn't sound like my mother's. It was sharp, loud, and filled with a desperate, ugly energy. She sat up straight, the frail, dying woman posture completely discarded. She glared at me, her eyes burning with a resentment that had clearly been festering for years. I had to protect my son, she shrieked, pointing a trembling finger at Liam. Liam is the only one who carries the family name. He has a wife, he has children, my grandchildren. If his business went under, they would have lost their house. They would have been out on the street. Do you want your brother to go to prison? Do you want your nephew to grow up without a father? So you decided to destroy me instead? I asked, my voice flat, empty of the anger she was projecting. You're smart, she cried, her voice cracking. You've always been independent. You don't have a husband. You don't have kids to support.
You can handle it.
You can always find a way to make money. But Liam is fragile. He needed my help. If I didn't do this, the family would have fallen apart anyway. She turned to Grace, her expression pleading. Grace, sweetheart, you understand, don't you? You have a good husband. You have a stable life. I only took your dowry because Liam needed it. I was going to pay you back, I swear, but then the market crashed and… Grace let go of Liam's arm as if he had suddenly caught fire. She took 3 steps back, her eyes wide, staring at her mother as if she were looking at a stranger. You took my dowry, Grace said, her voice dangerously quiet. $200,000 that my husband's family worked their entire lives to provide. You told me you kept it to save Quinn from being jealous. You told me Quinn threw a tantrum because she didn't have a wedding of her own, and that you had to hold on to the money to keep the peace. I had to say something to keep you from asking for it back, Mom stammered, her face turning a mottled red. I did it for the family, Grace. For the family. For Liam. Grace corrected, her voice rising, thick with a lifetime of suppressed bitterness. Always for Liam. And you let me hate Quinn for 15 years. You let me treat my own sister like an enemy. You brought me her hand-me-downs. You brought me my own stolen things and told me Quinn had demanded them, just to make sure we would never talk to each other. Because you knew if Quinn and I ever sat down and actually spoke, your little secret would be out. She turned to look at me, her eyes filled with a profound, aching regret. I didn't offer her comfort. I couldn't. The years of hostile glances, the cold shoulders at family dinners, the snide remarks at holidays, they couldn't be washed away by a single moment of clarity. But the understanding between us was there, silent and heavy. We had both been pawns in a game we didn't know we were playing. Liam, Uncle Robert said, his voice cold and commanding. He stepped toward my brother, the phone still clutched in his hand. Is this your signature on these transfer receipts? Did you know your mother took out this loan under Quinn's name? Liam looked around the room. He looked at Aunt Patricia, who looked away in disgust. He looked at the relatives by the door, who were whispering furiously among themselves. Finally, he looked at Uncle Robert. I didn't know she used Quinn's name for the loan. Liam lied, his voice weak. She just told me she found a way to get the money. I thought it was from her personal savings. I didn't ask questions. I was desperate, Uncle Robert. You have to believe me. He's lying, I said simply. I've already spoken to the loan officer at the bank. The email address associated with the loan application wasn't Mom's, and it wasn't mine. It was Liam's business email. The IP address used to electronically sign the documents belongs to Liam's office. He didn't just know about it. He orchestrated the paperwork because Mom didn't know how to navigate the online portal. Liam's mouth opened, but no sound came out. He looked like a man standing on a trapdoor, waiting for the rope to go taut. The room erupted. Aunt Patricia, her face red with shame and anger, turned on my mother. Helen, how could you? Arthur would be spinning in his grave.
You've ruined this family.
You've turned your children against each other. And for what? To cover up for a boy who can't even run a basic business? Don't talk about my son that way, Mom screamed, her voice hoarse as she clutched her chest.
He is my son.
I did what any mother would do. No, Uncle Robert barked, slamming his cane against the floor. No mother does this. You didn't just help your son, Helen. You actively sought to destroy your daughter. You set her up to take the fall for your own failures. It's disgusting. I watched the chaos unfold. The aunts and uncles who had, just 10 minutes ago, been nodding in approval as Aunt Patricia beat me with a broom, were now vying to see who could condemn my mother and brother the loudest. The hypocrisy of the room was stifling, smelling of cheap hospital disinfectant and sudden, self-righteous indignation. I stepped back, away from the bed, away from the screaming and the accusations. Quinn. I turned. Grace was standing beside me, her arms no longer crossed. They hung limply at her sides, and she looked smaller than she ever had.
Queen,
I didn't know, she whispered, her eyes red-rimmed. All those years, the things she told me about you, I believed her. I was so angry about the dowry, about the things she said you took from my house.
I'm so sorry.
I looked at my sister. I saw the genuine pain in her face, the horror of realizing her entire adult life had been built on a foundation of lies manufactured by the person she was supposed to trust most. But I also remembered the cold smiles she had given me, the easy way she had watched Liam hit me, and the indifference she had shown when Aunt Patricia came at me with the broom. I know you didn't know, Grace, I said, my voice quiet but firm. But you were very quick to believe the worst of me. It was easier for you to hate me than to look at the reality of our family. She winced, the truth of my words striking her like a physical blow. What? What are we going to do about the loan? The $300,000? We can hire a lawyer. We can fight this. I'll help you. My husband and I, we can find some money. There's nothing to fight, I said. I pulled a small, folded piece of paper from my coat pocket and laid it on the bedside table, right next to my mother's water pitcher. I didn't come here today to beg for $1 million, and I didn't come here to start a family feud, I said, addressing the entire room. The shouting died down as they turned to look at me. I came here because I wanted to see if you would actually go through with it. I wanted to see if, on your deathbed, Mom, you would really hand me that card and condemn me to a life of debt and hatred. I looked at the folded paper on the table. That is a copy of the formal police report I filed yesterday morning, I said, my voice echoing in the sudden silence. I filed charges for identity theft, grand larceny, and financial fraud against Liam Lynn and Helen Lynn. The bank's fraud division has already frozen the accounts, and they are cooperating with the police. The IP addresses, the emails, the signature comparison, it's all in there. Liam gasped, his face turning a terrifying shade of purple.
Quinn.
You called the police on your own family? On your brother? You are not my family, I said, looking at him with a detachment that seemed to frighten him more than any anger would have. A brother doesn't steal his sister's identity to bail out his failed business. A brother doesn't hit his sister to keep her from exposing a lie. I turned my gaze to my mother. She was staring at the police report on the table as if it were a death warrant. And a mother doesn't use her child as a human shield, I said. You wanted me to be your favorite, Mom. You wanted everyone to think you spoiled me rotten. Well, now you get your wish. Everyone knows exactly how much you gave me. Quinn. Mom's voice was barely a squeak now, the fight completely drained from her. She looked incredibly old, her face hollow and defeated. Please don't do this. I'm your mother. My mother died a long time ago, I said. Probably around the time she decided that one of her children was worth saving and the other was just a resource to be consumed. I turned my back on them. Quinn, wait. Aunt Patricia called out, her voice filled with a sudden, oily panic. We can settle this as a family. We don't need the police involved. Think of the family name. Think of what people will say. I don't care what people say, I said, without stopping. And I don't care about the family name. You can keep it. It's the only thing you have left. I walked toward the door. The relatives parted from me like the Red Sea, their faces a mixture of fear, shame, and awe. Nobody tried to stop me. Nobody dared to touch me. As I reached the door, I felt a hand lightly touch my sleeve. It was Grace. "Quinn," she whispered, her voice trembling. "What about us? Is there any chance for us?" I looked down at her hand, then up into her eyes. I saw the desperate need for connection, the desire to rebuild something out of the ashes. But some things, once burned, cannot be put back together. The foundation was gone, and there was nothing left to build on. "I hope you find peace, Grace," I said softly, gently pulling my sleeve from her grip. "But you'll have to find it without me." I walked out of the room. The heavy door swung shut behind me, muffling the sudden eruption of shouting that broke out the moment I left. I could hear Liam's panicked voice, Grace's angry tears, and Aunt Patricia's frantic attempts to restore order. The Civil War had begun, but I was no longer a soldier in it. I walked down the long, sterile hospital corridor. The air smelled of floor wax and stale coffee, but to me, it felt incredibly clean. With every step I took away from that room, the heavy, suffocating weight that had rested on my shoulders for my entire life seemed to lift, disappearing into the fluorescent light. I reached the lobby, pushed open the heavy glass doors, and stepped out into the afternoon sun. The bank card was still in my pocket, the empty, plastic promise of $1 million. I pulled it out, looked at it for a brief second, and then tossed it into the trash can by the entrance. I took a deep breath, adjusted my coat, and walked down the street into a future that finally belonged entirely to me.